Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to the Tisch WNET studio here in the heart of New York City. It is our honor and pleasure once again to welcome Neal Shapiro, our president and CEO of WNET. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to be back, Steve.
Last time we were here, last year, we were talking about where we are in media and journalism. I'm going to jump right in. Where are we?
We're in a tough time and an exciting time. We're in a tough time because criticism from the White House and some of the conservative wing has never been tougher, more misplaced. And I think more building suspicion about everything. We're in an exciting place because there are more partnerships, technology is better, and I think people are starting to realize the value of journalism, that it's unbiased and straight ahead. And you're seeing some of that in more support for institutions like PBS and like 13 and like NJTV than we've seen before.
Yeah. I ask you this, and I don't want to, and you want to see past interviews with Neal, go on our website right now. The fundraising part, the economics of what we do, is that more challenging than ever? Forget about the government side, because they're going to do what they're going to do in Washington. Fundraising for you and your colleagues, more challenging?
Yeah, it is more challenging because let's start out, we give away a product for free. That's a tough economic basis to start with. And news is always a harder thing to raise money for than some of the other things. Not that we're not proud of all of it for arts and culture and history and science and so forth. News is a tougher thing. It's interesting, people are happy to partake of it, people are happy to see the value of it, but it's hard to get them to realize how much we depend on it. And especially now, the interesting thing in news is you have to be not just on how we're watching now on television, you have to be on every platform, you have to think about digital. All those come with extra cost.
Yeah, you know, Metro Focus, by the way, log on to the Metro Focus, the WNET website or the NJTV one or WLIW, about Metro Focus. I remember you started talking about Metro Focus. I'm going to see if I can get this right. Was it 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. Describe what you thought it would be, what it is today, and then we'll talk about all the other platforms it's on. Go ahead. Loaded question, I know.
What I wanted to be, we were on just first once a month. And I said, you know, we need a bigger blueprint because because news in the tri-state area is so important and so challenging. And with all due respect to our commercial competitors, they can't really take deep dives into what they need to, right? They have 22 minutes, they have to do traffic and sports and weather. But the things that I thought were important to the city, things like education, zoning, transportation, right?
Falling infrastructure, crumbling around us. That's not going to happen unless there's a horrific incident.
That's right.
And the local, it's not right?
That's right. And it's also just by nature of their format. They have commercials to squeeze in, so they're not going to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a half an hour to take deep dives, and I thought we should do that. So it went from a monthly show to a weekly show, and then a couple years ago 5 years ago to a daily show. And that's where we are now.
And by the way, congratulations to the team at Metro Focus. Just won New York Emmy.
First local Emmy.
Right?
Very excited.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
To Dave and the team and everyone there, to Raf and all the folks there. So try this one. When you, firing line, we had Margaret Hoover here. And also we had John Avalon taping today from CNN, who is Margaret's husband, and he's a huge fan of public broadcasting. When you and your colleagues said, let's bring Firing Line, the old William F. Buckley program back, what was the thinking behind it, and why now more than ever as we lead into 2020?
Interesting story about that, because Margaret is clearly a big talent, right? And her executive producer and I had known each other years ago at ABC News. He came in, we talked about the need for making sure that we had all points of view reflected, and in this era where people are screaming and shouting.
And not listening.
Margaret is really smart. She comes at it from more sort of a moderate to conservative point of view.
Sure does.
But in a very open and honest way. And her interviews are probing but very respectful, all about the kind of dialogue we need in public television. We need everywhere, but the only place that's going to have it is public television. So Firing Line was that place for years and years, and then it went away as Mr. Buckley went away. So when she came back and said, I'd like to do this show, and by the way, I'm in the lineage of Herbert Hoover, and by the way, we have the rights to Firing Line, and I think we'll call it the Margaret Hoover Show. And I said, I got a better idea. Why don't we call it Firing Line? I said, oh, you think so?
You did that?
Yeah. Only because I thought Firing Line had this, incredible resonance with the audience, and it does.
Well, I'll bring it back to the local level. I called Neal several months ago because we have to check in, and I said, Neal, we have an idea. Ben Wattenberg did a program called Think Tank many years ago, and we lost Ben Wattenberg, a conservative-leaning intellectual.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair to say? And I said, what about if we create a series called Think Tank? We did it we tape it over at NJTV on the Jersey side of New York, and just have a meaningful discussion with different people, civil, respectful. And you said, basically, if you can raise the money and we can do it right.
Yeah.
why is that civil discourse, disagreeing but never being disagreeable and personal and negative, why is it so important to our public broadcasting brand?
You know, I think it's important because it's not that other people don't discuss issues. They just yell and scream at each other, right? And some, I think, oftentimes it's just about the theater. It's either about getting people who will disagree about each other and amping up the atmosphere because people respond to tension, but they don't learn anything. Or the other thing which happens a lot is getting people who agree with each other all the time. So you get the same point of view over and over again. And that just reinforces people's point of view. What I think public television has carved out is truly a unique place where people from different points of view, as you say, will disagree agreeably. And that seems to me gives the audience a chance that they get really very few other places on television, maybe no other place on television, where to sit back and say, I won't be distracted by who dislikes each other more. I'm going to pay attention to what they're saying, to the substance of it. And that's what makes us unique. And in these times where the temperature is so amped up on everything, where people even in the same family can't talk, because
talk.
Right, because the fuse, it takes one word to set off an argument. That's what I think makes public television truly unique.
Go back to the Jersey side. By the way, when we mentioned NJTV, there would be no NJTV if there were not for WNET and Neal believing in that idea, not just believing it, but helping making it happen. Is it 2011?
Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah.
Talk about NJTV today, NJTV, the network, the news, and also the partnership with folks like Spotlight.
First, I couldn't be prouder of what NJTV has done over 8 years. As you talked about in the very beginning, they sort of flipped a switch and said, now it's yours. And
New Jersey the government got out of the business and said, anyone want it? No one did.
Right. So we stepped in, but it was truly, you know, we had a little studio. We sort of ran together the newscast, heroic, but truly understaffed. Now we have a daily newscast. It's the only one that covers the whole state. They do a great job. What I'm very excited about is, in the spirit of how do we do better, is we've acquired NJ Spotlight, which is the leading digital news provider in the state. And now, for the first time, a statewide public television station, we're working with a statewide digital news service to together produce something which will be more exciting. And I think we will borrow from each other. I think what makes NJ Spotlight great is they have incredible depth. They have people who know these issues backwards and forwards. And they're very good at the print word, but they're not so good as they'll acknowledge in what video is. And we have great video reporters who are, you know, constrained by a minute and a half or 2 minutes or 3 minutes every night. So to put those two things together and make it a richer experience for both is very exciting.
So, real quick follow-up on the Neal. You moderated a forum at NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, on the importance of, I don't know if I want to call it local journalism. What's the difference between that and hyper-local journalism? Is there a difference?
Yeah. So local journalism would be, you know, what's important to you, written maybe by the city or the state. Hyper-journalism would say, like, what's important to you in your neighborhood, in your community. And the challenge for journalists is going to be not just how do I cover things that make a difference in the country or the state or even the city, but what are truly local things I can get. And what's exciting about the digital world is we can tailor that news. And the more we know about you, so for instance, we've been talking about Spotlight taking advantage of all these databases that they have access to. So if you care about, and especially in New Jersey, you care about property taxes or school enrollment or crime or transportation, we can report about those things across the state or across north versus south or central. But what you really want to do, if you have the time, and we can teach you how to do it, is find out what does it mean in your school district? What does it mean where you live? And the ability to do that and then do stories out of that is the next big step in journalism.
Before I let you out of here, your constant, I mean, I always say the same thing about you, a producer at heart, but is an executive in his role, both put them together. How do you stay as fresh as you continue to be in terms of not doing the same job, innovating all the time? Someone said innovate or die.
Look, I think every corporation has to do that. I consider myself incredibly lucky. I get to work with great people. We have great partners. I think they also bring a sense of energy. You know, you can't innovate if you don't have people who are willing to try things. You can't innovate if the team isn't open to that. And I think our team, both the partners we work with like you and the people who work directly for us, all are excited about that. And there's something great about coming to work and saying, this was good, how do we make it better? And that's truly what we have.
And to Neal's point, not just because he's the boss here, because it's a fact, we wouldn't be here in this studio doing this program, with this program, if we're not for this partnership. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure.
Well, I always say this every time. We'll talk about the Yankees another time. We're just fans. And the rest of you are too. This is One-on-One. We are at the Tisch WNET studio here in the heart of Lincoln Center. Be right back after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Investors Bank, RWJ Barnabas Health, the Northward Center, the law firm of Gibbons PC, Johnson & Johnson, NJM Insurance Group, and by Berkeley College. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.